You're not? Okay, so here's a live. So we're going to get through some of the, we're going to just do a little quick walk back. All right, so we're going through, here are some links. I apologize. In the chat is the link to this evening's presentation. PDF of something is wrong when. Uh, I have to correct this. The Disclosure 101 is not at this link. I wasn't seeing it at first, but you can always do a search for this one. But this, you can purchase the or the paperback in this. There's also training for through Sign in America. That's the jurisdictional and how to enforce. Sovereign's Way is additional ways to be able to support how you can be able to walk through things. The Sign in America study course is presented by the Federation. The Sovereign's Way is from others that are separate. That's their own private trade. Anna's Article 4400, our court system. She talks about, if for those that want to get deeper into learning the knowledge about our court system, she lists several items of locations of where to go to get more knowledge, one of which is Brent Allen Winters, commonlawyer.com. Brent Allen Winters is currently living on Terre Haute, Indiana, and has been for decades, as well as he has been providing this common knowledge information to Americans for several decades at this point. He has not presented to the assembly because he's been walking this way all along, so not sure from that aspect, but he's been very supportive with supporting the assemblies in working through group volume discounts and things like that through the Federation support. Here are all the links that you're going to want to bookmark that are going to be supportive in helping you. The IndianaAssembly.org and At Home on Indiana.org are the Indiana Assembly maintained website. So questions with that would be connecting with the Indiana Assembly at records at the IndianaAssembly.org with questions about with issues on the website. PKTFnews.org is the Federation's Peacekeeper Task Force that is attending to, as peacekeepers, the very First Amendment is ensuring our freedom of the press and all that goes within that amendment. The American States Assembly.org are your templates for status correction, as well as you can find template packages support, document preparation support, and other services and products for Indiana nationals here at AtHomeIndiana.org. States.AmericanStatesNationals.org. This is where you'll find the PDF of Something is Wrong When, and you'll go to the Educational Information tab at the top. That will take you there. Terry's challenge is to spend 10 minutes a day just on that page reading through there. Search AnnaVonRights.com. That is going to be a huge valuable tool. Anna has over 4,400 articles at this point. And so you can go through here to be able to do topic search, word search, things like that, to be, even if you have the article number in the name, search, and it will pull up the article for you. All of these are all Federation provided websites at that point, so you'll have to connect with the Federation for tech issues with those. Except for AnnaVonRights.com. Now that is Paul Stramer's website. He is hosting that blog site on behalf for Anna. So he does not maintain, the Federation does not maintain that website. He does, so you would have to connect with him with any issues there. Training, Sign in America, that's where you can do the Sign in America study course. And then again, here is the American State National Secure for the shop to be able to purchase items from there. All right. So this is our area of focus for educational for this call. Let me again make sure. Yeah, we should be, hopefully, it'll at least get it recording to YouTube. So hopefully this will be able to help us get all of this out for us. Okay, so in this presentation, we're going to go through the history, what went wrong, and what we need to do to be able to correct it, because it's we the people. That means us. We're the people. We're just not used to actually having to be the ones to fill those roles, while those that ended up stepping into those roles originally felt like they were we the people. Some had lost sight as to what they were actually there for. So we need to come back to the reality that it's us, we the people, that that need to be the ones to do this, and you have to have the standing to be recognized, right? So we're going to get you some contextual knowledge on and contextual understanding of what to be able to do to support this. Go through the assembly structure and the 4 pillars in that structuring process. State nationals and state citizens, what are the difference? You cannot be both at the same time, unlike a U.S. citizen. Okay, as you can either be a state national or a state citizen, but as a state citizen, you're acting in that capacity only in that time period. Paperwork. We're going to go through some of the paperwork so that you can get an understanding of what the status correction process is about. And then we're going to go through some how to protect yourself during the reconstruction process. Know the sea jurisdiction and how they play. Many realize you have been dancing with the sea jurisdiction for a while, but while you may have seen, yes, this is how they play, but it's also, there's other angles to take note of so that you can be able to see that, yes, this is how they're playing, but this is a better way to be able to course correct that and mitigate those issues. So learn how to operate as one of mankind and be able to press your claim, right? You have to press your claim. You can't have others standing up and being that representative for you in that. All right, so land and soil fundamental concepts. So why is land and soil so important? Man came from the land, right? So by the sweat of your face you shall eat bread till you return to the ground, for out of it you were taken, for you are dust, and to dust you shall return. Genesis 3:19. This is coming from God. And I'm not going to get into the existentials of, well, which God and that kind of thing. It's who do you go to? All right, additional fundamental concepts. Mankind came from the land. So only people, mankind, can create law. Law is expressed, it's written down on the public record of the land that they're standing on. Where there's no law, legal is implied. Property rights are the highest right a man or woman can have. Right? Now, and there's various things that are property, right? Obviously the number one source of thinking of property is going to be land, home. Okay? But there's also, you have property, like you have your car, truck, trailer, armory, your weapons, right? So those are property rights that you have as well, which as an American national that has corrected their status, we have private deeds to be able to compensate for those, to be able to bring them over onto the land. But you can't have payments on it. You have to actually own it, right? Private property is anything or anyone which you believe belongs to you, right? To the exclusion of anyone else in society. So, right? So anyone that you believe belongs to you. And that also means, like, if you're in your car traveling, but you're traveling with friends of your family. You're taking on in that moment, that you're taking on being responsible for them in that moment, right? But you're not responsible for what anybody else, right? That's crossing into your neighbor stuff. That's not your stuff, right? You don't need to envy your neighbor or anything that they have, right? You're dealing with your things. Men and women express the law for their private property. So that way you need to know how to express the law, how to articulate it in order to hold on to your private property. Again, law is expressed, it is written down on the public record of the land, right? Therefore, you're making it a law for yourself. Only the people can create the law, right? All right, so if you don't know your rights, you don't have any rights. If you don't own property, you probably are property. Let that sink in. If you don't know your rights, you don't have any rights. If you don't own property, you probably are property. Again, clarity on what property is defining. So don't automatically jump to that it has to be land for property, right? You do have to own some property in order to be able to start considering yourself as not being property for others. All right, so legal fictions, and I pardon the print quality in this. Evidently, it's from the template that it was doing funny things. Some things I was able to clean up, and some it just got to be a little bit cumbersome. Legal fictions, persons, corporations, anything abstract that exists on paper or in the mind only cannot achieve parity with men and women. Think about that. So what's parity? Parity is equality, similarity, or close correspondence or equivalence as regards state, position, condition, quality, degree, and so forth, right? So in legal fiction, it's always about, well, I said so, but it wasn't actually put on a record that could be presented, right? It was only in the mind, so it's not going to be able to achieve any parity there. All right, so here we have Never Never Land of abstract fictions, which exist on paper or in the mind only. So you'll see international sea jurisdiction, that's all about commerce. And they told us about this in various things out there, right? There, you need to always, while it's hard to imagine that they corrupted a lot of things, there's a lot of details in that they've provided and told us of what they're doing, all right? I've gone forward and put in the DUNS numbers, the Dun and Bradstreet number for the state of Indiana and the United States Inc. So you'll start noticing that, and as you start referencing to help you with changing the spell in the vocabulary and the verbiage that you're using, language that you're using, is start referring to U.S. Inc. Include the term Inc. afterwards, or corp after, right? Include those terms when you are definitely talking about the de facto. This will start helping your mind to start changing that programming, because you see there's a DUNS number. You can look that up. All right, so other verbiage that they use in the spelling. So we've got corporations we've just talked about. Amazon, clearly in commerce, right? These are legal fictions and legal persons. So a corporation, any type of a corporation, so that's why you don't want to incorporate your business, anything like that. And that's going through the state for wherever you're at. You don't want to go through that state. Now, as an American, you have the right to have private trade. They cannot interfere in your ability to provide a living. So you have you can trade. So we have business trade deeds that you can be able to do as well for businesses, for your own private trade, so that you don't have to get involved in their system. and that's a whole other conversation. But you can be able to find information about that on the AmericanStatesAssembly.org website under Chart Your Course tab. All right, so again, corporations are considered legal fictions and legal persons, and that was thanks to which president? Obama, right? Now, enfranchised persons, you have U.S. persons and U.S. citizens. They're enfranchised. They're the ones that are caught up and liable for the debt. That's anyone that wants to claim to be U.S. citizen is liable for the debt. Citizens of U.S. So there you have then are the governor's, president's titles. You notice the difference between U.S. citizens and citizens of U.S. There's that word play. That's why the governors and presidents through their titles are given that immunity. That's why you can see them do most heinous, corruptible things. But there's only 4 things that they can actually be impeached and indicted on, and that would be treason, counterfeiting of securities and coins, American U.S. of securities and coins, and 2 others we go through in the Brent Allen Winters going through the Constitution. All right. And so that's why they're given titles, and then they're considered citizens of U.S., which is different from a U.S. citizen. Wordplay, note, right? And then they also have officers, where we have officials. They have doctors that end up having an MD, right? Usually they call them physicians. And then they call them farmers instead of gardeners. That's why they pushed the verbiage to calling them farmers, because then they upscaled them to selling, because they're selling in commerce, right? And not provide, had they been providing just for their community and locals, right? Doesn't stop others from, outside coming, because visiting your website if you're willing to ship outside of your community. But then you could be gardeners, right? And then therefore you're not in that C jurisdiction. It also has trusts, estates, even those life estates and the living trusts. I mean, and think about those things and think of how those work out, okay? And again, everything we've had to do, every step of along the way that's been done through this process, we've had to do through, there were things that had to be done in that manner because it just was the only way to get it done in that time. So we're course correcting as we can go with what we have, all right? And as long as we're also going with the knowledge of course correcting, that if you have to do, there are times you have to step into areas to be able to make it clear, right? And then as we go along and you learn the new process, you actively engage making those changes, right? As well as any one of those, because you'll be able to see that a governor, the president, their titles, they'll have a DUNS number. Okay. All right. Moving forward, mankind is comprised of men and women. So we're on the land and soil jurisdiction. This is where we have the right to exercise self-determination. This is our free will, right? Self-determination is free will, right? But it's our own self doing it, as opposed to, well, free will, well, we can get somebody else to do it for us. It's not that it's not free will, it is our free will. It's just how the verbiage and the spelling morphed that and changed the concept of that. So they've got you believing that, well, it's your free will, that you can't, oh yeah, you can pay somebody to do things, do this kind of stuff for you. But at the same time, you have the free will to ensure that you're being self-determined in your as to what you're doing in this process. Choosing a political status or lawful person. Right? So this is where you're making that, not only is it your free will, you're exercising the right of self-determination. You're choosing to correct your political status to be a lawful person as a state national that's on the soil level, or a state citizen from the land level. So land is the whole state itself, is your land. That's your nationality. Soil is that first 6 inches below. All right. Now, bear in mind, your birthright, where you were born, is your actual nationality. For example, I was born on Florida. However, my family and we moved to Indiana autumn of 1998. And so, and then we adopted Indiana as being our home state. So we've adopted it as our nationality at this point. We had two of our children in Florida, and then they moved with us. And our third child, our youngest, was born in Monroe County, Bloomington. All right, so that's where your nationality comes in. So. And then that's why it's land and soil, because you can't separate. You can't have the soil without the land. You can't have the land without the soil, right? Now, in the sea jurisdiction, there are legal persons. We Americans are lawful persons because we chose to correct our political status. But in the sea, it's considered a legal person. U.S. citizen of the United States, Inc. Most Americans did not choose this status of their own volition or will, right? Nor was any full disclosure given as to what any of this meant. It just, everybody did this. A fear in the hospital to do it, as well as the using that peer pressure. Well, everybody else is doing, that's the normal thing to do, right? These statuses were implied because Americans did not declare their status on the land and soil. You have to declare it. You can't just assume it's there and then everybody fall in line with it. You have to actually declare it and make it happen. So if the law is not expressed, legal is implied. So if you have not declared your status, you're automatically implied to be a legal person. Okay? Because only a lawful person has the authority to create law. Contract law requires two parties to be in existence. So think about everything you're doing is a contract, right? So there has to, both parties, requires two parties to be in existence for the relationship to occur. A trust remains in effect for only 3 generations. If a beneficiary does not come forward in that time, the trust is forfeited. And they tell you that. All right, so let me do some checking here. We're getting into some deep things. So we get, so far, everything seems to be moving well. So, all right, we'll get back to this. Okay. So here's a representation of, in text format, of what our actual state government, the United States of America. Notice the U is lowercase because United is not the actual name. Where all the states, and it's of America. So this is created through the agreement known as the Unanimous Declaration of Independence of the United States of America from 4 July 1776. And the states represented, implied here, were the original geographically defined estates formed by the United Colonies. They are guaranteed a republican form of government. At this point in time, it was known, it was common knowledge that the Republican form of government that was being not the Roman form of Republican form of government, but from the aspect in the layers of details, but of the having a representative. But that representative is actually supposed to connect with the people, actually supposed to hear what and present what the people have to say and bring that forward, not their motives and their agendas. Together they formed a union, a federation, and a confederation. Okay, and we'll go through that. So the Union of States had to come forward first, because that was all of the states had to come together to even create the Union of the States, and they did that through on 9 September 1776 through the unanimous Declaration of Independence of the United States of America. That's where the national soil jurisdiction was created for the Union of States. This is where we're supposed to be, private persons. This is us, where we're supposed to be. And this is the states. So Virginia, Maine, New York, Indiana, just calling it by its name itself. And the people are state nationals. They're private persons. They're county courts to go through, not state courts. And it holds to local common law. Okay? So because of that, then the United States of America was created out of that holds the international jurisdiction to be able to speak outside, so that giving permission as that unit, as that federation of the states. And this is Anna, when we talk about the Federation and all those at the Federation level supporting Americans out there today. And again, it holds international jurisdiction. So, and this is for, again, the states, Virginia, Maine, New York, but it's not any extension of. And it is upheld with state citizens, the people. It's the uppercase P, those that have actually stood up further to actively support and govern their state. Lawful persons. And at this point, then there are also state courts that are used, and then the American states common law is in practice there. So then from that point, the Confederation, and again, this was the original how it was designed, that it is not how this followed through. And we'll see. We'll walk through that. But this was how the original design of this is. So the United States of America, the states of America. So we went from the United States is the Union of States. The United States of America is the Federation of States. And then on 1 March 1781, the Confederation of States was created, known as the States of America. Okay, and this gives the global jurisdiction. This is business for the states, the state of Virginia, the state of Maine. This is so that to speak on behalf of the business for that state from America, when dealing anything outside of its state, and to be able to deal from a global jurisdiction. So therefore, and it then created a legal person of state. Okay, and again, this is how. So we have private persons, lawful persons, and legal persons. Okay. The state of Indiana courts are missing now. And that's where we're working through to get these things corrected. Okay? And it uses international mercantile law as opposed to admiralty law. All right. So, we're always operating in different capacities at the time, but it's not that we're operating in capacities simultaneously. Now, though, it's very common out there that multitasking is great, but no, not really. You can't actually multitask at the same time from this kind of perspective. So here's some metaphors of how that looks. So John, Cindy, Bob, Mary, and George are members of the local hot air balloon club. Okay. They're members of a local hot air balloon club. So they're in a private capacity, right? We've got private persons, lawful persons, and legal persons of the state, right? Of state. So how are they going to fit in here? So John, Cindy, Bob, Mary, and George are members of the local hot air balloon club. So that's the private. They're acting in the private at that point. John, Cindy, Bob, Mary, and George are also members at Costco. Still acting in that capacity. Now we're getting into some little different things. So the same five are also members of the local bakers association. It also depends on what the company is and what services they're providing. Did they require them to check as U.S. citizens? They're also members of Historical Buildings Institute. Now these are commerce, but it's not that they're acting on behalf of providing business or state level service. Tuesday nights, they're acting in their capacity as bakers. Thursday nights, they're acting in their capacity as balloon pilots. It all depends on what they're talking about, the nature of the discussions, etc. So here they're acting as members within, and then here they're acting as employees of, and how they're supporting that system. Is it their own private trade business, or are they working for someone else as a baker? If they're working for someone else, they may end up going into a different jurisdiction from that. Again, it all depends on the jurisdiction nature of the conversation. Acting in their capacity, so this would mean a type of service is being provided, whereas here a discussion, it talks about where they're members of. So at this point, they're also actively, as members, they could be actively supporting how it's being governed, right? So there's a lawmaking aspect, and then there's also a service making aspect. So again, it still depends on what they're talking about, the nature of the discussion, right? Okay, so again, that puts us back into here. So it was the comparison of the three different forms, but showing the differences, right? Are you acting as a private person, or are you working for a corporation? All right, so here is where we get into, we've moved everything up here. This is what it's supposed to. So it's above the chart, above the line is how it's supposed to, because we're above the line, right? Everything below the line is what it turned into, right? The federal subcontractor government. So the 19 enumerated powers of our sovereign government were delegated to 3 service companies. The 3 service companies: Federal Republic American, DBA, the States of America, 1787. Territorial Government, British, DBA, doing business as the United States of America, 1789. And this is uppercase U. And then the Municipal Government, Papist, doing business as the United States, 1790. Now, if you'll notice, it's a name change switch. Look, the United States Union of States. So here it's the is capitalized, United States, the first letter correctly capitalized. Here it's not. The is not capitalized, and it's calling it States of America. We're here, United States of America, the United States of America. Right? The United States of America, but the name change is getting rid of the because it's not the original. It's a corporation. And then municipal, same thing. It cut it down to United States, with the not being actually part of the name. So the Federal Republic is supposed to be a republican form of government, part of international land and sea jurisdictions. The Constitution for the lowercase United States of America, Georgia State, Maine State. And there are legal persons here, because these are these subcontractors, so they cannot work with we are missing, right? So these are legal persons that they're working with, so that's why it's the Georgia State, the Maine State. Legal persons, United States citizens. And the offices are actually vacant right now, periodically filled by representatives. So that would be those sitting at the state levels of their state, right? And it's periodically, because the term periodically can be either that they're either in a short pop of a moment or they're in a lot longer than they deserve. It was never meant to be a form of retirement, a career to retire from. This portion of the federal government's been missing since 1860 because it should be comprised of living people. United States statutes at large and organic law published upon the congressional record, and if you'll notice there are different records here, congressional record, so it's international land and mercantile law, so it's supporting this how it morphed all of this into here. So this is, and then this is, then they created the democracy. So where this is our republican form that they didn't tell us about, that they created, but they didn't let us know clearly about that. And then here, the democracy, part of international sea jurisdiction, the Constitution of the United States of America, the is not capitalized, nor is the, and so it's state of Georgia, state of Maine, state of Indiana. And it's comprised of legal persons as U.S. citizens. Whereas here on the land and soil are state nationals, state citizens, right? Here they're U.S. citizens all the way. One way or another, whichever version of it, it's U.S. citizens. State citizen was removed from that aspect. So this also maintains those that are federal military independents. So these are the elected officials. No, these are the people in this, and trying to dump the people into the democracy. When we should be filling over here. So then, all right, so the Federal Republic is supposed to have it has a congressional record. It gets published. Then there's the federal, and you can find there is a congressional record. If you look out there, you'll be able to find that it is out there. It's just not being maintained by the people. Then the democracy has a federal register because it's dealing with admiralty and equity law, and it does have the first judicial district courts. So the American Federal Republic has the postal area court going through things. So that's why postal is a big matter that we're dealing with. Whereas in the democracy, it's the first judicial district court. So then when you get here to the municipal government, that's that added little piece. That's the one the Pope had to get into. And it's a plenary oligarchy. And it's part of that global air jurisdiction directly in commerce. And it has the Constitution of the United States. And it goes with the state of, and it goes into all caps. State of Georgia. State of Indiana. And it holds legal persons, citizens of the United States, federal civil service and dependents. And unfortunately, that's where they sold out our own people that are actually, those working at the U.S. Postal Service have become federal civil service, and dependents were plopped into municipal when they're actually supposed to be in our postal court, area court. And a plenary oligarchy is held in Washington, D.C. So again, on democracy, it's holding the Navy, tariffs, trade policies, northern mercenaries in the Civil War. Where over here, the municipal through D.C. is southern mercenaries they were the southern mercenaries in the. Okay, so here's where the divide, the north and the south, right? And so with the municipal law, they use municipal code, UCC. It's all based on Roman civil commercial law. And they have the uppercase United States District Court. So that shows how this has kind of been hanging out there, but it's actually been missing, and this is how they forced us into these other areas. Through the language, through the spell in the words, similarities. All right, so an overview. So the Federation of States, through the Constitution for the United States of America, U is not capped. So it's a part commercial contract and a part trust indenture. So the commercial contract is the enumerated services aspect. And then the part trust indenture is that those citizens bear the weight of the debt. Government services contractor, it was sent through. So then it became a trust management organization. And that's how they morphed that over through the birth certificate and the Sister-KV trust aspect. All right. Let's see. We're still recording through the radio. Awesome. On free conference call. And we are still recording through here. Oh, I hope that hasn't been a lengthy thing and not included any of that. So we'll see how that goes. But again, the recording, there should be a full recording somewhere, and I'll be able to get that posted if it is missing anywhere. Again, bear with us as we're working through a free conference call and migrating over. All right, so this is what's been presumed to be in reconstruction and not functioning. Right? Okay. And that's a big piece that morphed it because this was not functioning. This is how this came into play. Then it was plopped over into, because of the representative, into a trust management organization to operate and maintain it. Okay, so that's municipal for government services contractor. So we have here United States, aka the company, was chartered by Benjamin Franklin. The United States of America Inc. was chartered by Lincoln. United States Inc. It's all a trusted trust management organization. Any questions? You can send those, post in the chat, in either chat. I'll figure out ways about how we can be able to work through that and support through that. All right, so now some historical context. So it went into a state, moved into estate trusts. Take note of this is actually an I, it's not a 1. That's a whole other lesson, but just take note. It's not really 1666, just so you know. But they assumed it, again, with the spelling, right? The visual of that. After the Great London Fire in 1666, so people left their possessions and never returned, right? Just like with Pompeo, right, with the burning of Pompeo, they had to be able to claim their land. When Rome fell, the people had to come back and claim and declare that they're alive, right? The obvious problem being that you didn't know if someone was alive or dead, but their private property and estates were left behind and needed to be managed, right? So somebody had to care for those things. So Parliament in Westminster met behind closed doors and passed the Proof of Life Act, or Cestui Que Act. So you have to provide proof of life. You have to provide proof of life, or they still hold all of your property. The fundamental idea being that the state has control of everyone's estate trust until a living man or woman comes forward and proves they are alive and makes claims for judgments. So you have to come forward and prove that you're alive, and then you have to make claims for damages if you're going to take back from it. But how to do that peacefully. So they had created the Public Charitable Trust in 1933. FDR and Congress declared that the United States of America, Inc. is bankrupt. So they passed HJR, House Joint Resolution 192. This creates the Public Charitable Trust, which is comprised of millions of personal estate trusts for every U.S. citizen. So because of the London Fire, this is how, because after the Great London Fire, that's how they got things motivated to be able to work that over here. So then in 1933, that's what it was based on, that FDR created that over here in Congress. So what does an estate trust do? The United States of America, Inc. was declared bankrupt, and in order to pay debts to its creditors, FDR and Congress created estate trusts for every American and also presumed that they were U.S. citizens. Oh, how kind. And because the incorporated entity, the United States of America, not the United States of America, created U.S. citizenship with the 14th Amendment in 1868. U.S. citizens are considered employees of that company. So if you state you're a U.S. citizen, you're an employee of that company. So that's probably how they're also using it to lump people in through through IRS and taxing aspect of it, is stating that that's what, if you're working for a company that is considering itself part of U.S., that's why you have to do it as the tax. That is it. When each American is born, a birth certificate is created for them. If you hold on to whatever copies that you have, protect them as much as you possibly can, because each time, even if when you go to order a new one and you think you're getting a copy, you're not actually. Because if you'll notice, they're being issued a new certificate number. So it's creating duplicate numbers or extra certificates that they can be able to use. So when each American is born, a birth certificate's created. The birth certificate's then used to create an estate trust for that American using their given name, John Michael Smith, or all caps, John Michael Smith. So that's the estate name that they created through the birth certificate. Because Americans are not in the habit of recording their baby's name to the land jurisdiction, there's no public record that the baby exists on the land. because they never insured to include that. They wanted to make sure you got the birth certificate so that that trust was created. That's how the trust is created, is through the birth certificate. If you don't create the birth certificate, then the child's not through that system. And then, but you have to record the baby on the land in order to for the baby to be considered existing. But from that time on, the federal government has an extensive system of their estate, which has their same name, everything. That opens the door into all of it. So what does an estate trust do? When each American is born, the trust is created. The trust is bonded $600,000 and insured for $1 million. After 75, the trust is bonded for $1 million and insured for $2 million. That's why they went for a lot of the millennials to tap into their trust funds, so to speak. But then they ended up getting to where they've lowered the birth rate at this point, so they've kicked themselves in the foot on that one. That's the snake eating the tail, right? The birth certificate's offered as a surety backing those estate trusts, so that birth certificate is that surety. This includes all your private property, all your intellectual property, your home, your car, your labor for your lifetime. This act was sold to the American people as a benefit, but Americans were purposely not taught how to use it as beneficiaries. So, and that's why we have to be able to clean it up, to be able to get out from underneath it, because they didn't want us to be a beneficiary of it, nor do we want to be a beneficiary of it. So we have to be able to get out from underneath that. But they didn't want us to learn how to be able to use it, because they wanted that money. Which isn't, it's all fiat anyway. So what doesn't it does, it's not actual. So what does, as well, what does it do? So securitizing someone's labor is slavery. That's unlawful and illegal. So every time you go to check that you're a U.S. citizen when you go to work for someone, you're actually putting yourself into a form of slavery with them. That's indentured slavery with them. But this process of converting someone from a living man into an estate trust is called unlawful conversion. That's how they unlawfully convert you to get that state ID or driver's license, to unlawfully convert you into a state resident and under municipal control. Kidnapping someone from the land jurisdiction into the sea jurisdiction of commerce is called inland piracy, which has been outlawed for 200 years. Because both the U.S. citizen and the estate trust are creations of the United States of America Incorporated, they are considered employees of that company and also liable for their commercial debts. All right, so also when the federal government services contractor goes bankrupt, the secondary creditors come calling for their assets. The operators of these contractors go into the protection of bankruptcy, but their employees, U.S. citizens, are held liable for their debts. Bankruptcy has always been the plan. Each government service contractor has gone bankrupt for this purpose, and they were trying to steal our country from us over a span of more than 100 years. And so now at this point, the Federal Reserve notes aren't even backed by anything of intrinsic value, and that's gold, silver, or even oil. It's backed by good faith and credit of the United States, the district aspect of the United States, and includes their 300 million employees, the estate trusts of U.S. citizens. All right, we'll keep moving forward. So, national soil jurisdiction. 92 physical counties defined in Indiana. Each controls national jurisdiction of the soil. Taken together, these countries define the embodiment of the combined soil jurisdiction owed to their State of the Union. The small s for the soil jurisdiction means we are talking about the state as a nation state. Each county government is the supreme local authority, and so the county sheriff, unincorporated, is that supreme elected peacekeeping official. And notice official, not officer. The supreme authority extends only within the physical borders of the county, only within their county. And each county has its own state as an interface with other states and foreign countries in their international jurisdiction. So the only way you're able to interface with another state is that you have to go through your state. So the state assembly goes through to interface with the other states as far as business is concerned, as well as your state then connects internationally with other foreign countries. This isolation of the superior soil jurisdiction of each county was created to protect them, precisely to protect them from foreign influence, and to build a cohesive and defensible nation state. Each county is cut off from the rest of the world. But that's why they infiltrated into the counties and incorporated the counties, and so then they sold land and allowed foreign countries to come in and open up their businesses and gave them all kinds of tax breaks, right? And nobody in those local offices bothered to say, no, you cannot come here on this land. Without this protection, each county could split off and ally itself with any foreign government if it chose. So our country would become a hodgepodge of over 3,000 disparate county, nation states, all functioning under different laws and warring with each other. And this is why we need to be cohesive and come together. United we do stand. All right, so we have the county is the soil level, right? So we have the international land jurisdiction. That's the entire state. And it's the state of the union. The state is set apart from the nation state formed by the combined soil jurisdictions of the counties. The state level of government exists in the international jurisdictions of the land and sea, and it's inhabited by lawful persons and legal persons. It's still national soil, comprised of 92 national soil jurisdiction counties from the surface to 6 inches below. Indianians operate as American state nationals, are people who populate the land and soil jurisdiction of Indiana. So as soon as you present your paperwork to the public record, the land record, to a public record, which you can go to a local notary as long as the notary blocks and as long as the document keeps you in land and soil jurisdiction, you can present it on a county public record, or present it to the state. If you're the very first one, then you've populated that county, and that automatically starts populating the counties. Okay. So Indianians operating as American state citizens are the uppercase P, people, lawful persons who control the international land jurisdiction of Indiana. So at the international jurisdiction is where Indiana as a whole acts as a physically defined state of the union and interacts with the other states and other countries like Denmark or Japan, for example. Keep moving forward for time. All right, 4 pillars. This is the 4 pillars of building the assembly. There's the General Assembly, which all those that have presented themselves as Americans are able to assemble for the General Assembly to be able to support as a committee of the whole to support the building and reconstruction process. Now, the International Business Assembly and General Assembly are state citizen only. General Assembly is comprised of state nationals and state citizens, where the International Business Assembly and General Assembly are state citizens. Now, jurors are state nationals and state citizens, but for the most part, there's also the opportunity that its talesmen have opportunities to participate as jurors without having being a state presented as a state citizen. But there are some qualifications to go through that. And then militia assembly. So General Assembly and militia assembly have state nationals and state citizens within each. Militia is not military. Militia is the people. It's the community, and is how we can support the community. All right. So General Assembly, comprised of both state nationals and state citizens, provides a discussion and decision forum for intra-state business. Inside the state only. Business within this state, not on other states or other countries. Again, it acts as the committee of the whole and decides issues of general interest. And it conducts elections, it conducts all the elections or through there, provides oversight for all assembly functions. All assembly functions provided oversight through the General Assembly. Generally speaking, it is a public meeting. If the General Assembly wishes to conduct any private or sensitive intra-state business, divide the agenda and close that portion of the meeting to include only state nationals and state citizens. All state nationals and state citizens must be allowed to attend all General Assembly meetings. And state nationals and state citizens, right? Regular assembly meetings are scheduled and posted in advance. At this point in time, there are Mondays. The first and third Mondays are the General Assembly and Militia Assembly meets at 6 p.m. Eastern, or 6 p.m. Central, pardon, and 7 p.m. Eastern. And then the second and fourth is the General and Militia Assemblies, 6 p.m. Central and 7 p.m. Eastern. Adoption of rules of order for the conduct of meetings is highly encouraged. Here's Indiana's Assemblymen and Women points of order that you can click on there to be able to read that, as well as it's on the Assembly website. Publication of an agenda at least a week prior to all regularly scheduled meetings is also highly recommended. Right now we're in a training stage. In training and discussion. So, and as points come up, they're presented as they come up. And notice if there's an election or if changes come up, it'll be presented in the agenda before so that it carries over to the next week's agenda. Subcommittees. There's the General Education Subcommittee, produces educational materials and programs for the general membership and public. New member orientation provides support and educational guidance for new members to overcome prior indoctrination and fear and dependency issues. We're starting those. There's been past calls on the website, and we're starting those again this Monday for 3 consecutive Mondays prior to the assembly call, and then off 3 weeks, then on 3 weeks, then off, and to schedule out to for the first quarter of next year. They're valuable information. There's also events committee, plans and executes events, meetings and elections and setup and that type of thing. A lot of it may be combined as a general subcommittee at the time to be able to, and some of these combined together until enough members can be able to separate it out. Records committee assists and oversees recording secretaries and supporting of the and retention of the documents and records. All right, so then there's continues with Treasury Committee, Oversight Committee, Ombudsman Committee, Vetting Committee, General Elections Committee, an Office of the Marshal at Arms. The Office of the Marshal at Arms is within the General Assembly. And each assembly, the General Assembly, the Business Assembly, the Jural Assembly, and the Militia Assembly will each have its own marshal at arms. And then as the counties build, they'll have their own marshal at arms. And there's one state level marshal at arms. The International Business Assembly, so that's the second pillar. It's composed entirely of state citizens, conducts the international land and interstate business of the assembly. So what's going on the land as a whole for the state, and how to and its business with other states and other countries. The state citizen status is required to be set apart, to have no allegiance or connection whatsoever with any other foreign nation or entity, the United States Inc., and records additional paperwork to verify this to be true. This exclusive allegiance to Indiana is necessary to have standing to vote on international and interstate business. And this is the whole premise of state citizens. Okay? The International Business Assembly meetings are relatively rare at first, so we haven't dealt very much with those. The unincorporated, the state of Indiana is a member of the Confederation of States, which today is being impersonated by the British Territorial Incorporated, the state of Indiana, and there's its DUNS number that you can look it up, that it is a corporation. The Business Assembly receives its direction from the General Assembly. All right, so here's back to that chart again. This is showing where they're in the territorial and the DUNS number, and it's a franchise. This is operated by the Business Assembly. The Business Assembly should be maintaining this piece. And subcommittees, and you can read further with those: International Education and Security Committee, Congressional Committee, just some. Jural Assembly, pragmatically populating our courts is the most urgent task, provides court services and oversees the grand jury, trial juries, officers, and functions of the courts, populated by state citizens whose allegiance is exclusively to Indiana. Because like I said, the Business Assembly and the Jural Assembly has to be state citizens, all of whom are qualified jurors able to serve on both the grand jury and trial juries or officers of the courts. Okay, so the exception is because the state nationals have to be eligible to stand up as a state as a state citizen if need be. Therefore, they need to have all their paperwork presented at the time as for a state citizen, with the exception of the talisman. But there is still a qualification process for that, for them to be qualified. Subcommittees, Court Venue Committee. Take note, Ex parte Milligan. Here is the link to that full report on that court case. Law Education and Law Education Committee. And then here is a brief from Anna from her article 198. Where does law come from? When you have elected your own American common law court at the county level, they can no longer process anyone claiming their natural state national status in that county. When you get your state level American common law court set up, they can no longer process anyone at the state level either. For them, the game is over, because millions upon millions of Americans will seize back their purloins, identities, and their property, and these federal franchise courts will be reduced back to hearing actual maritime cases and dealing exclusively with legitimate federal citizens. And then, of course, there's the Jury Pool Committee. Court Oversight Committee and Sheriff's Committee. The sheriffs work through the Jural Assembly. For the Sheriff's Committee. So the to bring forward concerns of Assembly County Sheriff. Okay. Coroner's Office Committee and Litigation Committee. Interesting that the coroner's under juror. Okay, militia. All able-bodied members of the assembly between ages 21 and 65 are expected to actively support the militia in one way or another. As active militia, support, supply, communications, administrative positions. Assembly militias often meet before or after General Assembly meetings, but many also maintain a weekly schedule for training and to conduct exercises and business unique to the militia. It's only there. It's not about where they're all walking around in uniforms and doing strategic maneuvers. No, that's not what this is about. But it is learning about how to provide this support. All right, the militia has special purpose committees. So there's membership committee and provisions committee. And you can read through those, as well as education committee, operations committee, and also more info on the operations committee. Now, how to stand up in assembly, state assembly. Summoning authority calls the state into session. That's what's happened. Volunteers from the state step forward to do their paperwork. So state volunteers have stepped forward and they've done their paperwork and presented. And they have been vetted as coordinators and began organizing the work to be done. So you have to present your paperwork to step forward, right? To volunteer, to step up and step forward. This is how the assemblies are populated. Because it's not only that you're populating the counties through the soil through the soil by even putting your paperwork on the record, then presenting and stepping up as volunteers, not necessarily as coordinators, but stepping up, which co-coordinators are needed greatly, and organize the work to be done. But it's also volunteers as recording secretaries, greatly needed, volunteering for supporting the all technical aspects, like helping to support with the recordings, emails, things like that, technical aspects, things like that. And then it's actually filling the roles within the pillars of the whole state assembly. That's how the assemblies are populated then, by actually coming into starting to support and actively participate with the assembly and actually filling in roles, not just hanging around and showing up maybe once in a while, actually committing and participating. And right now, yes, it is all volunteer, because it is to be done by we the people. And we were not given the IRS funding to be able to make all that happen. So here's just a brief 10-step of how to build an assembly, of getting getting some ideas of how to work through, because you can use it at the same level for your county to help support at the county level. But again, you have to step up with the assembly, to step up that you wanted to be like a county coordinator or county director or a county organizer. And these are ways how you then, once you've stepped up with the assembly, been elected, and you go into the process, these are the ways to be able to help, our steps to be able to help you with that. So the General Assembly gets established, the International Business Assembly is established, Jural Assembly and courts established, and militia is populated and organized. And all of this can be done simultaneously through a supportive General Assembly. Election of session of officers and officials, training and transition of officers and officials. And then once this assembly process has been completed, the handoff happens and the coordinator position sunsets. All right, we'll keep moving forward. All right, so here is a handy document that you'll want to make a copy of. This gives you clearer definition of what the 5 types of citizens are. All right. Okay, so political statuses of the land and soil. So American state national, naturally born on the land, or a foreign-born naturalized and accepted to adopt an American state, publishes their adoption of the American state. Completely unincorporated lawful person, not a legal person, not acting as a citizen of any government, owes no obligation. And the 2 witness testimony, birth certificate, and 1779 declaration are required to support in the General Assembly. And the militia as an American state national serving as active participation requires cancellation of VR, revocation of election, to pay taxes to D.C. and New York, military severance if necessary, complete declaration of political status process, and present participation member agreement for active participation, but within the supporting within the General Assembly and militia. This is the minimum. All right, American state national remains a state national until 21, till the point they can choose to accept the duty and obligation to move forward. Sovereign and private are generally immune from prosecution unless they have committed a crime. A crime, according to the doctrine of corpus delicti, of body evidence, is whether someone was harmed, they deprived someone of their rights, or deprived someone of their property rights. All right, so American state national, here is for a true definition of an American state national. By definition, a civilian and internationally protected person. We're owed the law of peace per Army pamphlet 27-161-1. Here is a link to the PDF of the full document of the law of peace. It's also on the Assembly website. It's also on the free conference call wall. You'll have to go to page 2, I think, in the list of uploads and links, downloads and links, may be elected to a public office serving in the capacity of a state citizen, whereupon they become subject to their affirmation of office for the duration of their term in office. State nationals are the lowercase people of each state and populate the national soil jurisdiction. And the nationalities are Indianians, Ohioans, Kentuckians, Michiganians, etc. All right. American nationality is Indianian, not Hoosier. Cannot serve in the General Assembly or Business Assembly as an ASN. Okay. Political status of state citizen. American state citizens are state nationals who have volunteered to accept the obligations of self-governance in behalf of their state of the union. They're the uppercase people of their state, parties enabled to enforce constitutions directly and indirectly. Their state membership in the Federation of States, known as the United States of America, and the Union, known as the United States. American state citizens reach the age of 21, accept the responsibility and obligations involved to become eligible to act as citizens of our state of the union. State citizens must be free to make decisions impacting their state and its relations with other nations and states in the international jurisdiction. This means having a clear mind and open conscience, unaffected by mixed loyalties to any other master or foreign nation or foreign state. This includes other freedom movements. For this reason, state citizens must record additional paperwork in order to demonstrate their single allegiance to their state of the union. Both state nationals and state citizens can take part in public elections and may serve as electors. If deputized or elected to be state nationals, take on state citizenship for the duration of their service. But they will have to meet the same requirements of state citizenship and paperwork. And that's where state nationals most go ahead and complete their paperwork so that when they are ready to step up into citizenship role, their paperwork's already ready. State citizens occupy state and county public offices, acting as state justices, local justices of the peace, sheriffs, peacekeeping deputies, coroners, and other public offices, paid or unpaid. And again, at this point right now, they're all unpaid until funding starts coming this way. So the people start supporting it. The word citizen always implies an obligation to serve some form of government. The commonly used term American citizen is not an actual political status. It's a misnomer. You cannot be an American and a citizen at the same time, in the same way you cannot be a sovereign and a citizen at the same time. But you're a state citizen, not just American citizen. Okay, we're getting close. Soon wrapping this up. Okay, so all right, so we have here, this is the state citizen people. This is the state citizens. This is the area that they're occupying in and supporting. There are 3 lawful summoning authorities charged with the responsibility of calling the state assemblies into session to create the Federation to reconstruct the Federation of States. So the 3 options were the president calls it back into session, but the actual president of the United States of America has been vacated since 1860. Texas is the only state of the union still in session, so that disqualifies the minimum of 9. So we had to go with the owner of the Great Seals, the head of state of the Federation of States. All right, so if the Federation of States was formed in 1776 for the states to act together as one body in international global jurisdictions. It has no national level powers at all and is therefore not in itself a sovereign body. It is an agency of the states representing the sovereign bodies of the states of the Union in the foreign, international, and global jurisdictions. It is an unincorporated holding company which holds the international and global powers vouchsafed from the states for their mutual defense and protection. So, voluntary hierarchy of sovereign power, if there is. So, mankind breathes, lives, stand alone. Sovereign power. State national, lawful person, national jurisdiction, state citizen, accepting duties and obligations in international land. State citizens operate the unincorporated state of the Union, Indiana, a sovereign body. Indiana is a member of the unincorporated Federation of States, not a sovereign body. So state of the Union, so Indiana as a state of the Union is sovereign, but the Federation of States is not a sovereign body because it's not. The states of the Union are the actual land, so it holds that sovereignty. Federation of States hold international and global powers of the states. Federation of States is the direct party to the constitutions. In 1776, to operate in international and global jurisdiction realms, the Federation needed to operate under a recognized sovereign. This was inconvenient because each state could not be recognized as a sovereign in international jurisdiction and still have the advantage of mutually shared powers. To clear this obstacle, the founders used the sovereign status of William Belcher. This is Anna's husband, a patriot from Connecticut who later served in the Continental Army. This is a family member of Anna's husband, a patriot from Connecticut who later served in the Continental Army. William Belcher's family acquired sovereignty in England as a result of the Norman conquest. It's believed that people should learn to be self-governing. The Great Seals of both the United States National and United States of America International are part of the Belcher coat of arms array. As a result, William Belcher and his descendants became another safeguard for the American government, the new American government. The hereditary of the head of state passes down to James Clinton Belcher and our American government. This James Clinton Belcher is Anna's husband. And it's because every ship that sails under the Great Seals, meaning all corporations, all ships, and all commerce taking place worldwide by American vessels. The people who run the Federation's administration come from all over the country and are all volunteers. Some are related to the Belchers and some are not. Additional notes: Belcher is anglicized version of Belcher. Norman French, not British. It's a clan name, and the Bell shares. It's proper to think of them as a clan. Again, James Clinton Belcher is Anna's husband. He's an American head. He's the American head of state and postmaster and lawful summoning authority of the American state assemblies. Anna von Reitz has accepted the obligation of the fiduciary office handling global and international business. Due to all the relationships described above, the American State Assemblies is the only organization which has summoned the 50 states assemblies by the book all the way in harmony with that organic constitution. So the responsibilities of the Federation has two main responsibilities. The Federation is the voice and authority for Americans within the international and global jurisdiction. And you can read through that one for more details. And then the second responsibility is Anna von Reitz established the Living Law Firm in Alaska, a group of lawyers who gave up their... So the second part is the responsibility. Oh, it goes further. Here we go. Okay. So through that responsibility of the Federation, we get to the second purpose. Although the Federation is not a sovereign body, it does have the fiduciary obligation to ensure that the assemblies created are peaceable, composed of qualified people living within the borders of each state, who have declared and recorded their birthright political status. From there, to provide the discipline, framework, and guidance to establish the 4 pillars for each state assembly. Please note, this process is not given to interpretation. It has been followed to the letter. So the Federation has the authority to allow the assembly to continue or to bring it down and start it over again. All right, and you can continue reading through here. The Federation will vet and assign coordinators, provide oversight. Coordinators are considered state nationals because we're serving at the Federation level, so that we can be able to interact with those that are outside of our state. During this time of construction, if assemblies get off track, the Federation has the ability to dissolve an entire assembly in order to be reorganized the correct way. It's considered, the American State Assembly is considered fully seated when it is composed of properly declared and recorded Americans, fully operational with all 4 pillars operating and all offices filled within each pillar. So once seated, the assembly inherits all rights, titles, and interests for the state. The states were then state assemblies then responsible for performing under the treaties and constitutional agreements already established, supporting the restored American government and reconstruction for the conduct of the restored Confederation and Federal Republic. Paperwork. So the 1779 Declaration is the minimum required as far as status correction. It's not relative to your verification of identity. This is for status correction. Claims ownership of all your vessels from the moment you, the zygote, formed. Claims all your DNA material as your own. Declares your political status in the state you were born in. Rejects and removes all prior presumed powers of attorney. Rejects and renounces all and any allegiances to any king, prince, foreign state, foreign government, USA, Inc., flag, or thing. Declares you have never knowingly or willingly or voluntarily pledged yourself to any incorporated entity or church, synagogue, mosque, or temple. Never declared knowingly or willingly or voluntarily pledged yourself to any foreign sovereign or separated yourself from your birthright political status, the state national status. Declare that your house is established in an Indiana county and that no other presumption or impersonation is allowed. If you're on Kentucky, you would put that for Kentucky County. If you're on Ohio, Ohio County. declares that you're the lawful inheritor, landlord, keeper, and guardian of the rightful and lawful government of this country, acting with full right, authority, responsibility, and honor. All right, if you wanted to move forward to be a state citizen, there's also then what's known as the 928 bundle. It includes the deed of reconveyance, accepts and conveys your given lawful trade name, the name you're walking with today, not an opportunity to come up with a brand new name, unless there has been a life-changing event create the need for the name change, and a gender change is not really considered that. Because all this is about is coming back to claiming the name itself. Anyway, that's a whole other story. We're all unclear on how that's supposed to work through. So don't hold me to any personal feelings on that, please, because we've got to work through that as well, because that's what we're dealing with today as well. So John Mark Doe, from the sea jurisdiction to the land and soil of your native state. So, and that includes all of these name variations of the name, upper, lowercase, as well as all capped. The deed of reconveyance revokes all prior presumed powers of attorney or granted executorships or guardianships and agency relationships effective at your natural birthday. You elect to be the sole living owner, executor, beneficiary, and agent of your name and estate since your 21st birthday. You're claiming your estate too. Then there's the certificate of assumed name, claims all rights and interests in additional names you have gone by and permanently domiciles them on the land and soil of your native state. Also claims first priority creditor to all of it. Claims those names in the Admiralty Maritime jurisdiction on the land. The trade name, John Paul Smith, is unincorporated. Admiralty, John Paul Smith Foreign Situs Trust, is considered corporate. Maritime, John Paul Smith CQV Trust, is incorporated in commerce. Cancellation of all prior powers of attorney. There are exceptions. Can include exceptions such as medical, financial, POA for aging parent or disabled child, and the like. It removes, permanently revokes powers of attorney granted by you, establishes you as the attorney, in fact, for all purposes related to the administration of your estates, and lists an address for all correspondence. Then there's the act of expatriation and oath of allegiance. It establishes that you're a naturalized citizen of the United States, and that such citizenship was entered without full disclosure. So that's the all caps name was naturalized without full disclosure. So you're dealing with the straw man concept, right, of who you're expatriating. It's not you, the living man or woman. Declares you now renounce all citizenship or other assumed political status with the United States. You're repatriating to the state of your birth, and that you're affirming your allegiance to that same organic state. You're accepting and reclaiming your true nationality as an American state national and as an American state vessel in all international trade and commerce operated by you. All right, so will you stand and be recognized with us? Here, you can go here for status correction support if you're looking for services for doc preparation, various opportunities here to be able to support you, as well as you'll want to go to these links back up here to be able, because you'll want to bookmark all these links here, and you can be able to, for important study links, to be able to support you through this. And then you're welcome to connect with me as well. Here is my email address, and here is my schedule that you can be able to schedule with me for a consult. And if you have paperwork ready to record that has a notary block for the Indiana Assembly Recording Secretary, you can go here and schedule with me if you did not purchase a package. But you'll want to look at, if you're only recording the 1779, there is one record and publish item to link there. But if you're also wanting all the other documents, the 928 bundle, all the other documents, there is record the 928 bundle. So that way all of those documents are included. All right, let's get over to here. So we'll at least have the recording for the playback. We will turn this off at the moment and bring conference call. I really hope all that ended up sharing, and we'll see how. Let's get this view back to place here, and I probably should oh well, that changed that clearly. Let's see, we'll get back to this. Okay, all right, so I want to thank you again for taking the time to be on the call. And the links are there in the presentations in the chat, so you can be able to go through it and access the links within there as well. And I wish you all peace and love, and I will see you on the next call. Peace.
Goodbye.